You are listening to Charting Cryptos, Commodities, and Currencies. Let's jump into these charts. On the 24-hour-a-day Bitcoin chart, we are down right now 3.67%. And, of course, we can see where Bitcoin hit its high last week. The high, $108,364. Amazing. Right now, $95,686. And where are we going? Well, after all of that up movement, we've seen things pull back this week, break through that trend line, and head down as profits are being taken. What can we really see from the charts as to what's happening? Well, we're well below that weekly trend line on the 2-day and on the half-day. And it looks like Bitcoin, at least for the time being, has hit its high, pulled back and retracted, and is sort of regrouping. Folks are taking profits. We'll see how long it takes for Bitcoin to get charged up again. Now, the real trade, and we've been talking about this, we hit that interim high back on the 2nd of December. We can see where we hit the high in the last many months on Ethereum, and it was $4,097.40. The next week, the high was $4,008.20. And then we had what? So we had all this volume with the interim high. We had sort of that dead week. Then we had the red spinning top with average volume. Only thing that made it tricky is we had so much volatility back and forth, but it did portend what we typically see. High volume with interim high, high volume with red spinning top, down move the following week, which is what we've seen. Now, we've not hit the low on that prior week, which made it a little more iffy. We don't like that much volatility. But when you look at where things were that week, when you actually saw the move over in the market here on Ethereum, if the jumping in point wasn't at the extreme here, then again, it would make you feel better about jumping in. Why I say extremes is you don't want to jump in on particularly the down extreme with a down move, because when you have that much volatility, very hard to recover. You can see this week we've not gotten anywhere near it. But as we typically see with the investor sentiment that is depicted with that interim high, with all that volume, and then all the uncertainty with a red spinning top or a doji following that and all the volume, typically tells us downward pressure, which we've seen this week in a down move. So going in the right direction there if you're a short Ethereum. What's up with Bitwise? Now we're back to ETFs. This is not a 24-hour-a-day chart. This is an ETF. It's Bitwise, top 10 cryptocurrencies weighted as per market share, with Bitcoin being the big one, and you can guess down for the day alone 2.82%, well below the weekly trend line on the 2-day and the half-day. So again, we can see that overall the markets in cryptocurrencies are pulling back. Now let's move on from cryptocurrencies and look at a few commodities. We see again down, and we've watched since sugarcane hit its peak back in October. It has just slowly drifted down and accelerated over these last couple of weeks, particularly last week with all this volume. You can see where sugar hit a low of $11.47 this week, a little bit lower, $11.40. Most of that down movement was last week, but sugar continuing to head down. Corn over the last few weeks, this week being another, heading up this week to an interim high. Lots of indecision last week in volume, but of course the bulls won out over the bears, and sugar up this week for today alone 1.47%. Copper using a lot of industrial manufacturing, again sort of bouncing around here, but it has started moving lower. We see the low last week was 25.40, this week 25.50, so not quite as low, but again that candle overall drifting down, so that downward pressure remains even after the up week in copper back on the 9th of December. Silver up for the day 0.44%, but downward pressure on silver. We have seen it since it hit that interim high, and they didn't give us our wanted red spinning top. It gave us a green spinning top that following week with average volume. You can see the decent volume in the turnaround. Then a red candle that week beginning the 4th of November, another one the 11th of November, and then sort of popping up and drifting down a little lower and sideways. We had that up week on the 9th of December, but again resuming its downward march. And wheat again has been continuing to move down since it hit its interim high back in September. Couldn't reach it that following week at the beginning of October. And since then, we've seen wheat just continue to drift down. That is where we are with our commodities. Lastly, we'll look at 3 world currencies, sort of the big ones besides the United States that we look at. The first, we'll just do it in alphabetical order, is the British pound. Excuse me, what do we see going on there? Up just a wee bit for the day, but the pound tried to move up there in early December and then rolled over down again this Christmas week. What about the euro? Euro never bounced up like the pound did. It slid sideways and then last week started crashing again, down again this week. Of course, we go all the way back to when the pound was running up there into the end of September. Then right at the end of September, we started seeing the weakness and moving down strongly. Of course, after Trump won, it really hammered down that next week, beginning the 11th of November and the 18th of November, and has just continued to drift down. That is the euro. What about the Japanese yen? It saw 2 weeks of some bump up, and then, of course, I'm sure the Bank of Japan intervened again to do what? To keep their exports cheaper, and they lightened the load on the yen and drove it back down again. So again, yen weakness continues. That is where we are on charting cryptos, commodities, and currencies. Always love to hear from you guys. We like to take this little departure each and every week just to do something a little different. It always comes early to our Patreon members, posted at the Patreon page soon after we get it recorded for you during the week. And then at the end of the week, we release it to everyone else. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.